I was rewatching the Fox X-Men universe to get ready for Doomsday when I came across Deadpool, and I realized that, wait, it's been a whopping 10 whole years since Deadpool came out. Like, damn, bro. I remember when this movie first came out and everyone started talking about it on how it was like this new type of superhero movie that we've never seen. And it's true. We never really got a movie like Deadpool. It's like its own one-of-a-kind type movie. And it changed how superhero movies was made after that, you know? It had this whole satire, fourth wall break type to it. And it was just so refreshing seeing how he took a normal superhero story and changed it into something completely different. Something that no one has ever seen before. And that's what made Deadpool special. But does it still hold up 10 years later? No, really. Is Deadpool still worth watching and still really good 10 years later? Anyways, onto the video. Now, since Deadpool only had a budget around $50 million, the writers didn't really have much to work with, and so they had to work on the story a lot. And one of the key aspects that they improved of the story was characters. They had to write really good characters and make sure they all connect to the main character in some way. Like, for example, Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Yes, that's a mouthful, but Colossus and Negasonic are friends with Deadpool. The bartender is Wade's friend, Dopinder is Wade's taxi driver, Blind Al is Deadpool's roommate, and Vanessa is Deadpool's lover. And then we got Francis, who's the guy that made Wade Wilson into Deadpool and, turned him into a burnt fucking pepperoni. Deadpool wants revenge on him for that. But yeah, basically all these characters are related to Deadpool in some way, and they have established relationships and friendships with him. They're not like random or, just forced. Kind of like another Ryan Reynolds movie, which is Green Lantern, where in that movie, most of the relationships and friendships in that movie were like forced or artificial, It just did not seem real or natural at all, and that's kind of why the movie failed. Well, not like the main reason, but that's like one of the reasons why the movie failed, Its characters were not that good, and Hal Jordan was not portrayed the best in that movie. So I guess you could say Ryan Reynolds really did learn from his mistakes. But anyways, all the characters in this movie impact Deadpool's life and, impact the story, They contribute something to it. Like, for example, Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead believe that Deadpool's powers are not to be wasted, chasing down murderers and, especially get revenge for the man that, made Wade into Deadpool. But instead use those powers to save people and join the X-Men. Blind Al is basically kind of like comedic relief, but is the reason why Deadpool owns a house and has a place to kind of crash, While Dopinder, on the other hand, is Deadpool's personal Uber, and whenever Deadpool needs to go somewhere, he will always hit up Dopinder and Dopinder will take him. Kind of like that. Every character contributes something to the story and does not feel artificial or, forced. It feels really natural and feels like that these are actually real human connections and actually real human relationships. But if there's one relationship that does have some issues or, some problems, it has to be Francis, aka the main villain. Now, unlike all the other characters who have good relationships with Deadpool and actually have clear motives and whatnot, Francis doesn't really have that many motives or, goals, I would say. Francis is kind of like this end goal for Deadpool because, they don't really have an end goal. He's kind of like this end goal for Deadpool to achieve or, this bad guy for Deadpool to defeat because, they didn't really have any other bad guys. And using Cable would kind of take up a lot of the budget. I mean, we don't really get that many scenes with Francis. He only shows up a couple of times in the present timeline, one at the beginning of the movie at the bridge, another time kidnapping Vanessa, and another time at the very end of the movie when, he dies. And then he shows up at the past tense, in the past when they're explaining Deadpool's backstory, and he's kind of like there to, turn Wade into Deadpool. But that's pretty much it. And I like the idea on how, Francis takes disabled or, kind of like needy people who are on the verge of death and put them onto, his test experiments to see if they have mutant powers or not. And if they do, he sells them in the black market. That's some pure villainy shit right there. But we never really get to dive deep into that and, discover why Francis really does this. Is it for money? Is it for power? We don't know. He just does this because, he can apparently. And Francis apparently also has powers, which is something I never really knew until I rewatched the movie recently. And trust me, I rewatched Deadpool a lot. And I never really once saw him use his powers at all. We never really get to see Francis' powers. His powers are quote-unquote heightened senses, but we never really see that in action. You know what I'm saying? It's just that, he's really strong and has heightened senses. That's pretty much it. But it's like, we don't really get to see that, so it doesn't really make that believable. At this point, Francis is just some normal human. And I feel like if the writers actually, gave more attention to Francis and gave him more scenes or whatever, just a little bit more about Francis' backstory, he would have been somewhat of a decent villain. But he's not really that good. He's just some type of MacGuffin for Deadpool to go and, kill. That's pretty much it. And yeah, that's all he is, that much. And I just really wish we got more of him. I feel like most of his screen time and scenes were taken away from Deadpool, the main character. But I feel like they had to do that because, like I said, they had a budget around $50 million. But still, I just really wish we got more of Francis, Now, if there's one strength of this movie, it's that it's actually a lover's movie, but just Deadpoolified. And what I mean by that is, basically, long story short, Deadpool and Vanessa get together, Deadpool has cancer, he goes to Francis, gets experimented on, but then, gets turned into a fucking burnt potato, And he's so chopped to the point that he has an insecurity that he cannot go up to Vanessa. So Vanessa thinks that, Wade left her, or, that he's dead, and Wade still loves Vanessa and wants to go back to her, but he cannot go back looking like a burnt fucking potato, because he too knows he's fucking chopped. So he goes to Francis and tries to find him to see if he can fix him and then kill him. And on the surface, it's technically a love and revenge story, But they take that concept and make it into, a Deadpool movie. They kind of like Deadpoolify that movie. Deadpool has, the fourth wall breaks and makes meta jokes, at the same time criticizing, Fox and, other movies, while at the same time also dealing with a lot of insecurities and actual good character development. And they balance this out really fucking good. And as well as the fact that Deadpool revolves around one goal: to kill Francis. Nothing more, nothing less. To kill Francis and get back his life. And basically every single decision, every single act, every single choice is to take one step forward to kill Francis. That's it. Even in the flashbacks, you see, the movie doesn't open up in a linear timeline. We don't get to see Wade when he's young and then him turn to Deadpool. No, we get thrusted into, the world of the present and see that Wade is already Deadpool. And then in later flashbacks, we get to see how Wade became Deadpool. And the flashbacks only happen when it's needed. Not like, oh, let's do a whole monologue exposition in, black and white and whatever the fuck that is in the beginning of the movie, because, that will definitely save this movie. No, boring exposition will not save your movie, okay? If you want to do exposition, you have to make it entertaining and you have to do it right, just like what Deadpool did. They did flashbacks right. They did it correctly. They did it when we actually needed it, and they didn't overdo it as much. They just gave enough that we understood what the fuck was going on and that why Deadpool wanted to kill Francis. That is it. And like I said, everything that happens in this movie is one step closer to killing Francis. So because of that, we never really lost at all. We always know that whatever happens is one step forward to killing Francis, and that we know the end goal is always to kill Francis. That's it. That is literally it. Everything that happens is to kill Francis. That is all we need to know. And that helps pace out the movie, as well as keeping it simple enough for audiences who don't know Deadpool at all, as well as entertain them. So now on to the big question. Has Deadpool 1 aged like fine wine or like milk? And in my opinion, it aged really fucking well, okay? That movie aged really well. And in my opinion, Deadpool is a 9.5 to 10 out of 10, okay? That movie is so fucking good. And like I said, my only one takeaway from this movie is the villain is not done justice, but all the other things in this movie are spectacular, okay? The fight scenes, the characters, the story, and just everything else in it is so beautifully done, and I just enjoy this movie every single time I watch it. So yeah, Deadpool, 9.5 to 10 out of 10, perfect, okay? Fucking beautiful movie. Like I said, Francis, shitty villain, but yeah. Anyways, please like and subscribe, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.